I mean, let's face it, if you can win this game, you probably eliminate them from winning their however many in a row AFC championship, AFC West championship. You probably put them on the outside looking in, and the odds of them rolling back in here with you being 9-2 and them being 5-5, winning the division is almost out of reach for them at that point.
Hello, and thank you for joining us here on Broncos and Bourbon. I'm your host, Phil Milani. Very excited about today's episode as Mark Schlereth, the former Broncos offensive lineman and current media star. You can find him in the broadcast booth for Fox on Sundays. You can find him on 104.3 The Fan in the mornings. And then he also has a couple of podcasts that we talk about to The Stinking Truth and The Leftovers. So be sure to check those out if you haven't already. But very excited to have Mark come on the program this week to preview just a huge game in my estimation. This feels sort of like a playoff game coming up on Sunday with the Broncos hosting the Chiefs. The CBS pregame show is going to be live from the stadium this week. They're creating a feel here and an atmosphere. You know, they got the number one Jim Nance, Tony Romo in the booth calling this one. I just think that this has the makings of a big time game here. And for the Broncos, look, this is a game that has to have been circled on the calendar. At the end of last year, you had Broncos leadership saying, look, we want to win the division. That's our next step here. And in order to do that, you got to beat the Chiefs. So this game must have been circled on the calendar right when the schedule came out. And I think that for this Broncos team, sitting at 8-2, you feel good about where you are, but there's still like some doubt that's there, right? Like the way that this offense is played and struggle to move the ball, you know, they lead the league in punts, right? And so the way that this offense is played, I think that there's still some doubt on how good is this Broncos team. And look, they went on the road and they beat an Eagles team that gave them some confidence here. But if they want to be considered a legitimate AFC threat, a legitimate threat to make a run in the playoffs here, they're going to have to win a game like this coming up on Sunday. And I think that this is just such a big litmus test for this team. This is a game that this feels like a playoff game, and it feels like it's got all the juice leading into this one. And both teams should be very well rested. The Chiefs coming in off of bye week, the Broncos coming in after having the long weekend last week. So I'm excited for this game. I think that this could really tell us a lot about the Broncos. So I hope that you enjoy my conversation with Mark here. We really get into what's been bothering Bo Nix, why has this offense got off to these really slow starts? Why have they struggled to move the football? We really get into that. We talk about the Broncos pass rush, and we talk about just this Chiefs team in general. Like, hey, are they still to be feared here? You know, they still got Andy Reid. They still got Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce's their leading receiver. So do they still have all the pieces here? That Steve Spagnuolo defense, are they still the team to be feared? We get into all of that. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation. If you do, please like and subscribe as we continue to grow the channel here and, make this a bigger podcast. So that's why we go out and get big time guests like Mark Schlereth. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. And here it is, my conversation with Mark Schlereth. Mark, thank you for taking some time to hop on the program. How you been?
I'm good, Phil. How are you, buddy?
Doing well. Looking forward to this game coming up on Sunday, Broncos and Chiefs. This feels like it has all the makings of a big time game. I'm curious, Mark, how much weight do you put on the outcome of whatever happens in this one?
Oftentimes, Phil, I think it just depends on what it looks like, right? I mean, if you go back to last year when the Broncos went to Kansas City and were lining up for that game-winning field goal and it gets blocked, like that gave you a lot of hope that the Broncos are actually really good. You know, I mean, what did they lose 16 straight to Kansas City at one point? Like it gave you that kind of hope. I know there's no moral victories, but there's kind of some moral victories, right? Where you look at it and go, man, we're a really good team. So depending upon what it looks like, I think you can put a lot of weight in this. If the Broncos come in and don't fix some of their offensive woes and still have a bunch of offensive penalties and are always behind the chains, and Bo Nix is inaccurate with the deep ball, and they don't run the ball, then yeah, it would. Hey, we come out of the game 8-3, we lose. But none of those things go on, you're going to sit there and say, "Hey, man, they don't have a very firm grasp of this division lead, and it's probably not going to work out for them." But if they come in there and compete, and play well, and they fix some of the offensive woes, and they continue to have success, Vance Joseph does against Patrick Mahomes because he's had a bunch of success, kind of shutting down and limiting Patrick Mahomes. Then I think you walk away from that going, "Hey man, as this team continues to mature and grow and all those things, they could be really dangerous come playoff time." So to me, it's always about what it looks like, not so much about who gets the W and who gets the L.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Looking at this Broncos team, I guess as a whole, using that same sort of philosophy, it doesn't quite feel like an 8-2 team, right? Like there's still some issues. Obviously, better to work on those issues when you're sitting at 8-2, but the eye test doesn't really pass for the Broncos so far.
No, offensively, no, it just doesn't. And so then it comes down to how do you fix it, right? How do you get to the point where you're playing really good football, and how do you get to the point where you're executing and all those things? And one of the issues, and I said this on the Stinking Truth podcast today, what it comes out on Friday, but I think one of the issues, Phil, that you get into is when you see an offense that leads the league in penalties. There's a couple of things that resonate with me. Usually, penalties happen because um, you're encumbered from the neck up. Like when you've got a lot on your plate and there's a lot to go through, you don't just line up and play fast. When you're thinking, oftentimes your thinking it creates being late. When you're late, you are you're inclined to reach out and grab somebody because I always call it getting edged. People get on your edge, and when people are on your edge, you're beat. And so then all of a sudden your instinct is like, I can't let this guy beat me, holding call, you know, or there's confusion. And I'm thinking so much with the motions and the formations and the different things that we're doing and how we're going, hey man, we want to run. We want to run that we're going to the line of scrimmage. We got 3 plays. If we get strong side safety rotation, we want to run weak. If we get weak side safety rotation, we want to run strong. If we get too high safety look, we want to throw the ball, and so you've got all these things going through your mind, and all of a sudden the quarterback's barking something out and somebody flinches because you're like, okay, I got to do this, but if we get this, I want to go here. And so and I've said this on my radio show, I've said this on my podcast, like the answer for me, anytime we've struggled as an offense, anywhere I've ever been, whether it was my years in Washington or my years in Denver, the answer is always, let's make it simpler so my players can play faster. And what I want is, I don't care if you know what we're doing. I really don't. I don't care. If I can play fast and aggressive, then even if you know what I'm doing, I'm still going to win. And that to me is the kind of conundrum that the Broncos are in right now. Is like, I know Sean wants to be complex, and I know he wants to out scheme people, and I know he's super smart, and I know he's done it before with different personnel groupings and all the things he does. um but there's part of me that says right now, it's not really working. This offense really hasn't been very good. So my answer is always, like I said throughout my career, simple it down.
Yeah, yeah, dumb it down a little bit, and just go out there and out execute. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Does it feel like Bo's playing with some pressure on it, like sort of the weight of the world on his back? Because I can imagine when the other side of the ball is playing the way it is for the Broncos here, Bo must be heading into some of these games just being like, "Hey, as long as I don't screw this thing up too much, we're going to be in these things." Like, you feel like he's playing with some of that pressure too.
Yeah, I think there's no question that he's probably playing with a little bit of pressure. And also, the offense has struggled other than some fourth quarters. They just haven't been very good. So then you start pressing, trying to be perfect. And it's never perfect. That's never, you know, like as a player, there's always things you can clean up. There's always things that can be better. Again, it's about playing with freedom and playing with confidence. And the way you play with confidence is you are just super prepared. And I'm not saying that Bo isn't prepared, because I'm sure that he is prepared, but you just have to go out and have that attitude of, I know I've done the work. I know that we are ready to roll, and I'm just going to let it eat. And easier said than done. It's easier to talk about it than to go out and actually do it. But yeah, I think there is a overall perspective on this offense that we really haven't pulled our weight. And because we haven't, because the defense has been, incredible, we need to do more. And sometimes it's not about doing more, it's just doing less better.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that's one of the things they really need to focus on.
Do you think that you can gain some confidence by like a fast start too? Like if he just goes out there and makes a couple plays early in that game, maybe that'll just give him a little more juice earlier on. Do you feel
Yeah.
like that? Like when you were playing, did it take you just a couple get hit a couple times and then you were in it a little bit more?
Yeah, I think anytime, every team wants a fast start, and I hear that every week as I'm traveling around the league. Like we gotta start faster. And one of my jokes is always I've never been in an offensive meeting where we said, "Hey guys, we want to lull them to sleep. The first three drives is go three and out, three and out, three and out, and then let's strike." That's not ever how it works. So I think everybody wants to start fast, but to start fast, you have to execute. And that's the biggest thing to me is gotta execute, gotta execute, gotta execute. You can never get tired of execution. And it's so simple, but life and football it is simple. Um, just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. But it is very simple. And it comes down to every guy just has to do his job and do it, at a very high level.
Yeah, yeah. Execution and game plan, like it feels like it goes hand in hand here. But do you feel like like this offense shouldn't be struggling as much as it has been? Who do you think it has more on? Like, is it more on Bo or is it more on Sean making this thing too complicated?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's on everybody, obviously, but you know, I I always think about it from the standpoint of, hey man, if you put a guy in a position to fail and he fails, don't be surprised about that. You're the one that put him there. And so I think of it as we have had what now, 10 games? That's a pretty decent sample size, and this offense, minus a few fourth quarters, and one game against the Cowboys and a game against Cincinnati, they really haven't performed very well. And so, you have to, and I know the coaching staff does this better than I do. I know they look back on it, and I know like my assumption with Sean is I know we're struggling right now, but when we get through this and everybody gets on the same page and we get enough reps doing multiple things, this is how we're going to be a better offense come playoff time. And this is how we compete for an AFC championship. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah,
I think there's this juxtaposition of guys like me that say, hey, let's simple it down and be good right now, where Sean may be saying, hey, let's ratchet it up, and we're winning right now with our defense. But if we're going to win come playoff time, we're going to have these tools in our belt. And so I think there's a lot of that that's probably going on right now behind the scenes that I'm not privy to. But I'm like any typical fan. Um, I want to see them produce offensively this weekend. Like I'm not like I can't see beyond this weekend. I don't have a crystal ball to see the playoffs. And so I think there's a real there it's as a head coach, you're probably really weighing these things out, and that's probably where we sit right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a really good point. I haven't heard anybody make that. You gotta be thinking long term and short term over the
Yeah,
course
that's
of the
why you're
season.
paying me the big bucks to be on your podcast, Phil.
I appreciate that, Mark. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I was going to ask you about the week or the teams that you guys went on to win the Super Bowl. Were there games, during the regular season that just meant like a little bit more to you guys? And when you won that, you're like, okay, we're picking up steam here. Like along the way, were there moments where you're like, all right, we're gaining confidence?
Yeah, I think you're always trying to gain confidence, and there are teams that you had a natural rivalry with. I mean, it's different than today's football where everybody's buddies, and everybody follows each other on social media and everybody gets on each other's podcasts and stuff. There was like legitimate hate, like good old fashioned sports hate. So it was just different. We weren't exchanging jerseys and everybody's signing jerseys, and it was different back then. So there were a few games that I always looked at, like, the Raiders were always a huge rivalry. You always wanted to shove it up their cans. I thought anytime, like I always thought if you could go to Kansas City, even if you didn't win, if you could go to Kansas City in that crowd noise, in that environment, and beat the Chiefs or at least play them tight, that you had a pretty damn good team. So there were those games that just meant more. And I'm sure for the Broncos, this has got to be one of them. I mean, I know Sean said a couple of years ago, hey, that the record before I got here isn't my hump, and um, I'm not worried about, losing 16 straight or whatever it was, but like the Kansas City Chiefs have dominated this division for a very, very long time. And they've dominated because they're a damn good football team. And I know we all tend to look at Patrick Mahomes and go, okay, that's the reason. But it's a lot more than that. It's Andy Reid designing plays. It's Steve Spagnuolo as the defensive coordinator creating really tough matchups and taking people away from you, and having really good players from a guy like from guys like Chris Jones and some of the guys they've had on the defensive side of the ball, Bolton and some of those guys, like they're just legitimate, and that goes without saying. So this is a huge game, and it's I don't care what anybody says, it's a litmus test. You're like, hey man, we're going up against one of the best, even though they're 5-4 and we're 8-2. The majority of the nation thinks the Chiefs are going to come in here and beat you.
Yeah, yeah. Like at the end of last year, they were saying, like, hey, if we're going to take this next step, we got to win the division. To me, that means you got to beat the Chiefs, right? And so it does feel like this one is a big one. Does it feel like Kansas City is still like that team to be feared out there? Because you know that, hey, like they're going to click at some point here.
Yeah, I still feel like even sitting at 5-4, that I mean, let's face it, if you can win this game, you probably eliminate them from winning their however many in a row AFC championship, AFC West championship. You probably put them on the outside looking in, and the odds of them rolling back in here with you being 9-2 and them being 5-5, winning the division is almost out of reach for them at that point. So, like, that's a really powerful statement to make. If they win this game and they go to 6-4, it feels like it would be inevitable that they're going to win the division. That's what it feels like. And I say that based on their history, based on the guy who they've got playing quarterback. Everybody is always like, well, I don't know if so and so's the guy, and I don't know if, we just need ourselves a Mahomes. Well, good luck with that, because there's one of those dudes, and so you just got to understand how the game is played, and the importance this game, the value this game has. I mean, I don't write the Broncos off if they lose, but at the same time, um, if the Kansas City Chiefs get hot based on their pedigree, based on what they've done in the past, based on the players they have currently and the coaches they have currently, it becomes a little bit more of a daunting task.
So you're sort of saying though, like, hey, if the Broncos win this, they're in the driver's seat the rest of the way to win the division.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Now they
Yep.
haven't they've struggled in the past against, the Chargers, and they've lost a game in the division to the Chargers. So, and the Chargers are sitting at 7-3 right now, but the Chargers have been incredibly injured. Yeah, I feel like if the Broncos win this game, man, then they are clearly in the driver's seat to win the division. And that would be, I mean, that would be obviously awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And with you calling these games all around the league and you're going to all these facilities and you're really studying the league and everything, it doesn't feel like there is that super team out there this year that's like, hey, you just don't want to see them. It feels like even in the NFC, like this thing is pretty wide open.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the best team in the league right now, as currently constructed, the way they're playing right now is probably the Rams, is the team that I've seen as kind of quote unquote the best. But I'm splitting hairs. Like I could make a compelling argument it's Detroit, in the NFC, or I could make an argument that it's Philadelphia. I could make an argument in the AFC that it's New England or Buffalo, or Kansas City or Indianapolis or Denver, based on their defense. Like, so there is not a dominant team. There is some like four or five really, I think, good teams. And then there are four or five that are right there pressing those good teams. And so I mean, it's so wide open. It's incredible right now.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting to just sort of see, and it feels like maybe if this Broncos offense can just sort of figure it out, this team could become dangerous. And with that defense,
Hmm.
you don't want to face them come the playoffs. I am interested. This defense, the pass rush is just like off the charts. It feels like they're getting quarterback pressure nearly every play. As an offensive lineman, looking at this defense, like what do you think of this group?
Well, I think they're outstanding, obviously. And I think it's more than just their players. They've got a great rotation on the edge. Cooper's an amazing player. Benito's an amazing player. When they get Ellis coming off the edge in rotation, he's been amazing. Um, there are just so many dudes that you have to contend with as an offensive line. Then all of a sudden you get a John Franklin Myers who gives you pressures because you can find him the one-on-one. Zach Allen obviously is a guy that you want to try to, double team and take out of a game, but you just can't take them all out. They can all play. And then you couple that with the fact that I think Vance Joseph is doing such a phenomenal job, and Denver, you ought to enjoy him because I think he's going to get another opportunity to be a head coach here in the very near future. But he's doing a phenomenal job of creating pressures through scheme, whether it's blitzing off the edge, whether it's simulated pressures, whatever it is, he's doing a phenomenal job of scheming up not only the pressures, but how to get a guy in matchup. And I think that's one of those things that a lot of people don't understand is, hey man, I'm going to listen to and I'm going to understand where you guys are pointing out protection, how you guys are turning protection, who you're taking advantage of, and I'm going to find my guy a one-on-one opportunity, be it one of the inside players or outside players, and that guy's going to get a clear pass rush path to the quarterback. And I think one of the things you have to understand in today's NFL, with all the quick screens and all the the three-step drops and all those things, you're really only getting probably 12 opportunities to rush the passer, like legitimate opportunities to rush the passer. And so if your coach, through stopping the run and through some of the blitz packages and all those things, can get you 18 or 20 legitimate opportunities to rush the passer, that's when all of a sudden you can have those pass rush numbers and those pressures and those sacks explode. And a lot of that goes to, in my estimation, Vance Joseph getting you in those positions.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it just seems like there's too many of them to like really block and chip and like get multiple looks at these guys, and so you're creating these matchups that, yeah, I mean, 6 sacks a game or whatever. I mean, these numbers are getting crazy here, and then it doesn't feel like they really even miss like a guy like Pat Surtain, the defensive player of the year. Like the last couple of weeks, granted, it was the Texans and Raiders, but you feel like you don't miss him too much just because of the pressure up front.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that relationship between great pass rush and great coverage, right? But this will be the week that,
Yes.
that could rear its ugly head if Pat Surtain's not back. And I don't assume he's going to be back. I have no idea. But it's amazing what you can do when you can feel pretty comfortable in any situation that I can put the hat on Pat Surtain and have him lock in
Yeah.
one-on-one coverage, and then I can kick it to other players, whether I double team, Kelsey, or I double team somebody on the opposite side. Maybe it's Worthy, or maybe it's one of the other receivers. Or I drop down Pat Surtain inside and make him match up against Travis Kelsey. They did that with Brock Bowers a couple of the year, not last game, but last year, and was successful. So he just gives you a lot of flexibility on the defensive side of the ball. And, you can overcome that when you're playing against an offense like the Raiders who are struggling, or you're playing an offense like Houston who's struggling. But Kansas City is a whole different animal.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of thinking. And Pat, for some reason, is hard to bring down. Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes. It feels like you get your hand on him, but for some reason he's able to deflect those swipes at him. And why do you think he is so hard to bring down?
I just think he's got great pocket awareness.
Hmm.
So he has the ability to slide away from things and not take direct shots, extend plays. Like, he's the best of both worlds because from the pocket, he can just cut you up, be on time, be on schedule, keep marching down the football field. But when things break down, he's got that ability to create big plays in the passing game with his movement skills, with his off balance throws, with his no look throws. He just knows where everybody is. And he's just got that off schedule ability that just makes him a nightmare where you have it defended perfectly. You got him squared up in your sights. You're going to get him a sack. He makes you miss. Then he scrambles around for 3 seconds. Then he finds a receiver, and he throws it across his own body, across the grain of the defense, things that you tell people never to do. He does it, he puts it on the money, and the receiver catches it in stride and goes for 48 yards for a touchdown. Like, that's what he does. And that's what he does better than any other quarterback in football.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be interested to just sort of see if they're able to get those sack numbers this week going up against Mahomes like that. So, okay, I had one last thing I wanted to ask you before we get to some rapid fire stuff to close out. But this is sort of a media question. I know you're close with Colin Cowherd. Colin is like typically such a Sean Payton guy. He's really gone to bat for Bo Nix, but this week he's really sort of changed his tone. I was just curious what you thought about that, just knowing Colin, because this week, like he was talking about, like, hey, maybe could the Broncos like be back in the quarterback market? Knowing him, do you think that's just sort of media conversation to like stir up some talk, or do you think there's something more there where the national perspective on Bo is starting to change a little bit?
Well, I just think you can't watch that Thursday night game and see how, poorly the offense performed and not have some questions. And then also the inconsistencies of the offense in general throughout the entirety of the season. So I think that's pure speculation on Colin Cowherd's part. But I went through every play of that game through the coach's tape, and yeah, there's some issues. Like, there's some inaccuracy issues down the football field with Bo Nix that he's got to be better. He missed a couple of reads. They ran a dagger concept off a play pass, where you got Pat Bryant cutting across the middle of the football field wide open, and Bo gets a little panicky and throws the check down. Like, some of those things that you see and you got to be better. He missed one where he was protected, where the Raiders blew a coverage, and it should have been a 93-yard touchdown to Troy Franklin, and he again throws the check down. And I think part of that was he got pressured, and there was some dirty pockets, and so he felt sped up a little bit, and he missed some legitimate plays because he felt sped up. But then I go through and I look at, 3 or 4 balls that should have been caught that were dropped. That's a problem. I look at how we didn't do a very great job of picking up games and stunts in the middle of the football field with our center and 2 guards. Like, and that's why you felt sped up. That's why you didn't produce. So, I didn't feel like in those situations where we were uh, protected well, I didn't feel like our receivers won their one-on-one matchups. When you're holding people in on the edges, you're holding the tight end in the back to secure the edge before those guys get out. So it's a delayed five-man out. It's three guys out and two guys blocking 1,002 late. Like it changes. You no longer read from flat to curl. You read from curl to flat, or whatever in cutting to the flat. um, I didn't think our guys won, and we didn't win enough of our one-on-one battles.
Okay. Okay. So it's the whole offense that needs to get sort of a bit more in sync here then.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate your insight. I go to you for anything like sort of real tape. I know you're doing all this homework and everything on the tape. So I appreciate the breakdown and the knowledge here. I do have some rapid fire for you here, Mark, before we say goodbye. What was your favorite away stadium to play at?
Kansas City
Just the vibe in there. It was awesome, huh? It was.
vibe, the fans just on you, how loud it was, and the smell of barbecue.
Oh, yeah. You're getting hungry down there on the field. Yeah. Okay. And what was your favorite part about being a professional football?
Um, Probably the preparation, like just the game within the game, not only studying it, but overcoming injuries and playing hurt and doing those things, and just that connection, doing something special for somebody other than yourself.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that connection, that team aspect.
Okay. Okay. I like it. And then, with your path to the NFL, when did you feel like, okay, I got a legit shot at this? Like, did something happen when you were in college, maybe earlier, where you were like, if I really commit to this, I think that I got a shot?
Not in college. It was probably um as a rookie doing live one-on-ones with nothing but helmets on, and blocking like right off the bat, getting thrown in and like, oh gosh, here we go. I've never seen this. I mean, it's full contact, full go, just your helmets on and jerseys in mini camp. And locking up a couple of veteran players and locking up a guy that we drafted that won the Outland Trophy. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can play at this level. Because at that point, I was just like, I have no idea if I can actually make it. So, yeah, like it gives you confidence when you go out and you perform um, in kind of a situation where it's not advantageous to you, like, so that was a huge confidence builder.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were already in the league and still uncertain if you belonged. And then that
Yeah.
moment in mini
I,
camp, you were like, I can do
yeah.
this.
It made me feel like, hey, man, maybe I got a chance.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I
Yeah.
like that. Um, Away from football, what is your favorite team to just be a fan of?
Oh, the Broncos. Oh, we mean not
Away
not
from
being a foot like, yeah,
like
away from
outside of the
football.
NFL, like
Where
just like if
Yeah,
you're a fan of it.
wherever my son
Okay.
happens to be coaching. He's a college baseball coach. He coaches at University of South Florida. That's been my favorite thing to follow.
Yeah. How's he doing? You do you feel pressure watching those games as a father, or do
No, no, I
you
felt
just
pressure when he was playing. When
uh
he's playing, there was tons of pressure. Coaching, I was like, I don't give it.
yeah, it's just
It's
fun to
not it's
watch.
not the same. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, got it. Okay, and then the last one for you, after a long day, like you're on the road, you're traveling, you got your radio show, you got your podcast, you got all these things going on. How do you unwind at the end of a long day?
Um, I'll put in a movie that I've already seen,
Ah.
um, and then I can just fall asleep to it, and I can wake up in the middle of it and go, "Oh, I like this part," and watch it, and then go right back to sleep. So, yeah, I tend to put movies on with my wife Lisa, and she gets annoyed because I'm always, it's like the opposite of most relationships where the guy goes, "My wife just falls asleep." I'm the one that falls asleep, and my wife is up going, "I'm watching this stupid movie by myself."
What's like a favorite stupid movie you like to watch?
Oh, there's a lot I like Jumanji with The
Oh,
Rock.
yeah.
I just, yeah, I like all those, anything cheesy. I like
Yeah, yeah, that's
basically.
awesome. Well, I love it, Mark. Thank you so much. Really appreciate catching up here, and your insight on this big game coming up with the Broncos and Chiefs. So appreciate your time. And then also, what the Stinking Truth comes out on Friday.
Yeah, Seeking Truth podcast. We do it 3 days a week. We also do a leftovers podcast on Tuesday from the game I called. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the Stinking Truth podcast. Check it out if you get a chance. You're gonna love it.
That's awesome. Okay, we'll do. And then you'll be in Tennessee this week. That's right.
Tennessee. Yep.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, hey, Mark, I
Phil,
appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
you got to take care of yourself, buddy.
My thanks to Mark Schlereth for coming on the program here. I forgot to tell him that his check is in the mail. That he'll have to be on the lookout for that, right? But I thought just really great stuff there with Mark sharing his football knowledge. Somebody who obviously played in the league for a long time, a very smart offensive lineman. But in addition to that, now he's on the radio every morning and he's doing these games for Fox. He's looking at a lot of game film, and so I trust his opinion. And I just think that I find what he has to say really interesting, and I always learn a little something there. So my appreciation to Mark for coming on the show. If you like that conversation, please like and subscribe as we continue to grow the Broncos and Bourbon brand. My thoughts on this game a little bit here. I just think that this is a big one for the Broncos because I just think that that doubt about the 8-2 team. I think that the defense is playing so well. This is a Super Bowl worthy defense, right? A team that has this defense should be able to make a run to the Super Bowl. But what's holding them back is this offense right now, and that creates some pressure. Do you know what I mean? Like I think that weighs on a guy like Bo Nix, right? Nobody wants to be the weak link on a team, right? Like you can kind of think about it this way: like if you're on a foursome out playing golf, right? You don't want to be that one golfer that's slowing the whole round down. You don't want to be like that one guy out there who's spraying the ball around, and everybody's like, "Hey, come on, we're trying to get through this thing." I've been that golfer before. I don't want nobody wants to be in that position, right? And I wonder if Bo feels a little bit of that, right? Where he's like, look, as long as I don't screw up here, we're going to be in these games because of how good the defense is. And to me, you just can't play football that way. And I thought that Mark was right there at the beginning, talking about thinking too much when you're out there. I think that they're going to have to just take some stuff away from Bo. I know there was a lot of talk this preseason, like Bo's taking this big step. He spent the whole offseason studying. There's going to be more on his plate now. I just think that, hey, you got to go out and win a football game, right? And let's remove some of that stuff and just go try and figure out a way to beat the Chiefs this Sunday, right? I think that that's where this team is right now, and make things easier for Bo, and especially earlier in the game. Like Mark talked about, every team wants to get off to a fast start, but I do think that there's ways you can try and focus on that a little bit more early. Try to get some of these quick passes where, hey, there's a guy who cuts this way, there's a guy that cuts this way. You got to read one defensive player based off of which way he goes. You're going the other way. Like some of that, like almost like a Tim Tebow playbook, right? When the Broncos were winning those games with Tim, they made the game a little bit simpler for him where he doesn't have to think too much. Let's start the game that way for Bo. Make him make one or two reads and boom, the ball's out of his hand. Create some easy completions. Let him get outside of the pocket where he doesn't have to think about the pocket collapsing and needing to step up and worrying too much. Get him outside of the pocket. Allow him to use his legs a little bit more, earlier in the game. That's what we talked about in the episode last week with Nick Ferguson. Let him use his athleticism. Let him use some of this skill set that he has. And that gets him into the flow of the game, right? Maybe you get a first down and you start to feel like, okay, I'm in it now. I can relax a little bit more. I think that could be helpful for Bo. And I hear Mark talk about over preparation. Sometimes that's too much, where you feel like you've almost studied too much. And then when you come into the game, you're thinking too much because you're trying to remember all the stuff you studied. I think just take it away and let him go out there and play. Because look, the physical thing, we know what Bo is at this point, right? Like, so much talk about his footwork. Can he fix this? Can he work on this? Can he work on his delivery? Can he work on his motion? I think just at this point, we got to say, look, this is who Bo is, right? He's an athletic quarterback that you can win a lot of football games with in this league. Does he have the strongest arm? No. Is he the most accurate? No. But can you win a lot of games with the tools he does have? Yes. And I think that let's put that stuff aside and let's focus on what's going on up here in his head, above the shoulders here. Let's give him some confidence. Let's make it so he feels like he's not playing with this pressure on him, like, I don't know. Like, I heard him say this week that he deleted all of his social media and he doesn't he doesn't hear any of the criticism. I don't buy it, right? First of all, criticism, he's his biggest critic, right? Like, he knows he hasn't been playing well, right? And he feels the pressure inside that building to play better, right? He wants to play better for his teammates. He wants to play better for this coaching staff. He wants to play better for himself, right? He doesn't need to go on social media to know he's not playing well, right? And so, to me, he knows what the critics are saying, and on top of that, in the game, these home games recently, there have been boos coming, right? Like, it's almost better. I know this sounds maybe crazy, but it is almost better. Like, if this game were in Kansas City, where you feel like it's us against the world, that can kind of unite a team a little bit here. If this game starts out slowly and those boo birds start coming out early in this game after maybe a couple 3-and-outs, that's going to mount the pressure, I just feel like him saying he deleted that social media, so what? If his problem was that, hey, he was feeling upset because some people were being harsh online, the way to fix that is to delete your social media, right? But that's not the problem. The problem is that he's just not been playing very well, right? So they need to fix that part of it. So this is going to be a tough test for Bo, and I think that it's an opportunity to silence some of these critics out there, right? Like, I do find it very interesting that Colin Cowherd has had such a reversal, because for a guy like Colin, who, he's got a major radio show and he's a big time voice in the media world, right? Like he is a voice when it comes to the NFL. Such a big Sean Payton guy. He's always gone to bat for Bo. And this week, for him to just have such a 180 on that after weeks of poor play from Bo, where he's finally said, look, I've had it here. That is interesting to me. Like, this narrative about this Broncos offense and Bo Nix in particular, it is shifting on a national perspective here, where at the beginning of the season, they were saying, look, Bo may be one of the better quarterbacks from this quarterback class a year ago, and he's ready to take this big step, and he's got Sean Payton in his corner, and this offense has some more weapons this year, bringing in Evan Ingram and J.K. Dobbins, and there was that sort of conversation, but now that is totally shifted, and I think it's deserved, right? Like, the way that they've played and leading the league in punts and all these 3-and-outs in a row. Like, the deep ball is just not there. Like, when he throws that ball deep and it sort of goes out of frame on TV, you're just holding your breath, right? Like, I think there's just so much riding on this game that, if Bo goes out there and plays well against a good Kansas City defense and they're able to put up some points here, they could just change so much, where all of a sudden, and look, this is such a week-to-week league, right? But I feel like you can really change the narrative. And if they go out and beat the Chiefs and they do it convincingly, then this Broncos team should be feared, right? Like, nobody's going to want to play the Broncos if, with this defense and that pass rush, they're gonna be feared, right, on that side. But if the offense can start clicking, then this is a legitimate team, and they should be, like Mark said, in the driver's seat to win the division. The numbers just sort of stack up there, where the Chargers are still a threat, but it's almost certainly eliminates the Chiefs from winning this division. And so the division and taking the Chiefs out of that, and the fact that if the playoffs started today, the Chiefs wouldn't be in it. This Chiefs team is going to be hungry, right? And they know what's on the line here for them. So if the Broncos can win this, I think that puts the Broncos in another sphere here where now you're saying there's no but there. The defense is good, but that offense, if you can eliminate that notion, then this Broncos team will be feared. But on the flip side, if it's another game where the offense just doesn't figure it out, and this is sort of a low-scoring game, but the Chiefs aren't going to hang around like the Texans with Davis Mills or last Thursday with Geno Smith. They're not going to just sort of linger there and let the Broncos come back and win. Patrick Mahomes will figure this thing out. He did that a couple of weeks ago against Washington on Monday Night Football, right? The first half it was close. Second half, the Chiefs just dominated, right? If the Broncos struggle early in this game, the Chiefs are going to put them away. And there's not going to be this opportunity for a fourth quarter comeback and all that. Like, the Chiefs are too good for that, right? And they've been there and done that. They've been in these huge games. So there's so much riding on this. And it's not just another this is just not another football game. This feels like it could be this could be the turning point of the season, right? The Eagles were sort of a turning point at the beginning, right? Going on the road, getting that win. They've strung off all these wins now, 7 in a row for the Broncos. That was like a moment that gave them confidence and a boost, right? That they could win any game. This could be another one, right? Where they could go off in two directions here after this. And I just think that knowing that and knowing what's on the line, this is going to be an exciting game to watch. So that's what I'll say about that. Enough blibber blabber here. So let's get to a bourbon review, if you will, here. It's been a couple of weeks, so I wanted to. I saw this bottle at Costco actually, and I was like, "What is that?" Really a cool bottle. I love this sort of like glass here. This is Pendleton Straight Bourbon, aged 10 years. I believe the real name is this 1910 here, Pendleton 1910. This comes out of Hood River in Oregon, but I believe that this is distilled in Indiana. So they're not distilling their own, but what they do is that they take the mix and then they cut it with water here. Let's see, it even says, I think it says it's cut with down to 90 proof with Mount Hood glacier fed spring water. Wow. That's like a lot of like those like filtered waters. It's like, this is from Rocky Mountain water. But anyway, that's what that's how they market this. Okay. But I just like the bottle. It's got a real coppery color here. So I like that. American bourbon whiskey. I believe that this is sort of a departure from what Pendleton normally does there in Oregon. They usually blend Canadian whiskeys, and this, I believe, is their first like American bourbon. And so this, I believe, came out in November of last year. So just 1 year this has been on the market. And I do think that it may be a little bit harder to find if you're watching on the East Coast or in the Midwest. I think this might be harder to find. But I found it at Costco for a good price. This was like $34, $35, I think, at Costco. So I decided to give it a go. So nobody's paying me to review these, so I'm just sort of picking things. If you have something that you'd like me to review, please let me know, and I'll go out and give it a try here. So we got a cork. I love the cork. Good bottle here, so I like this bottle. Again, a very dark coppery color here. Let's give this a pour. Again, it's 90 proof, so let's give this a bit of a pour here, and we'll see what we think about this. You feel like the spice on the nose there, maybe like a little bit of cinnamon. I could not find the mash bill on this, but I do think that this probably has a decent amount of rye in it. Maybe a little bit of like orange citrus, just sort of like your classic bourbon nose here. Wow, spicy finish there. Kind of hits you in the back of the mouth a little bit. First is like interesting finish on this one. This is the first time I've tasted this, so it kind of like rides a little bit of a wave here. Like the initial part on like the front of the tongue is like a little bit of sweet, a little bit citrusy, and then it goes into that oak, a little bit of that spice. This has been, it says here on here, aged 10 years. So you can sort of taste that oak. You can taste the spice, especially like I'm getting it on like the roof of my mouth. I can really feel that spice. And then the finish kind of like is nice. It like kind of has like a little bit of a longer finish, a little bit sort of interesting. So a little bit like toffee, like I'm tasting a little bit of toffee there. So that's interesting. That's nice. I was reading online that like Pendleton sort of like said they're making this with the idea that it's going to be used in like old fashions and like sort of like your classic bourbon cocktails here. But that was nice. I'd drink that on the rocks. I think it's sort of an interesting flavor profile, and again, just a cool bottle like that. That looks cool, like sitting on your bar there. I think. And so maybe a little bit harder to find Pendleton there in Eastern Oregon, but you might know the blankets, right? Pendleton blankets. But yeah, that was good. I enjoyed that. Interesting. It's not like crazy complex where you're like, whoa, but there's like definitely something that makes you think a little bit. So I enjoyed that there. Pendleton, 1910. I think the 1910 comes from like rodeo, like a big year in rodeo in Eastern Oregon there. And so it's sort of like they're sort of branded a little bit like the Wild West, right? Like there's like this little like sort of cowboy here on a bucking bronco. Bronco, what? But yeah, so a little bit of a Wild West sort of idea there coming from Pendleton. So give that a try if you find it. I think Costco, a lot of Costco's sell that. So if you can find that, give it a go. But I got that for like mid-30s. So pretty good value, I would say. And I enjoyed that. This time of year, I like a little bit of a spicier kind of bourbon. So I enjoyed that. So all right, that's enough from me. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast, my conversation with Mark. Mark, is just such a great guy. Knowing him for a lot of years, was part of these two teams here over my shoulder, and I just appreciate him, because he's sort of like this. He's like a big deal in the media world, right? Like was on ESPN for a long, long time. He did his stuff with FS1 last year. And now, like if you live in Denver, you hear him on the radio, 104.3, The Fan. You can listen online too. He has his Stinking Truth podcast. He's got that Leftover podcast. So he's a busy man, and all that to say he's on the road every weekend in the booth calling games for Fox. So I appreciate him taking some time to be on the show here too. So I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe as we grow the channel here. And let me know what you think about the bourbon review. If you have something that you'd like me to review, let me know. And yeah, enjoy the game on Sunday. That's going to do it for me. For Broncos and Bourbon, I'm your host, Phil Milani.